Hi, I'm Girirakash from the Federal. We are launching a series on video interviews with the authors of nonfiction books. And this series is going to be called as Back of the Book. And we have with us Mr. Vijay Patsarthi, an alumnus of IIT Kanpur and IIM Ahmedabad. He's a former global CEO with experience spanning around 75 brands across Procter and Gamble, Colgate, Palmolive, Johnson and Johnson, and Tatas. And he has written a book called The Golden Ladder: Rise to be Unstoppable. It was recently released in Bangalore and several other cities across the country. Thank you, Mr. Patsati, for gracing this video interview.
Thank you so much, Mr. Girirakash, for having me, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. And yeah, it's really nice to be a part of this. And yeah, looking forward to having an exciting conversation.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Patsati. Let me read out some of the reviews on Amazon about this book. There's one reader who has said that Mr. Patsarthi's book is a masterpiece. He has integrated time-tested advice on building, rejuvenating, and maintaining a world-class business with practical and positive psychological inputs that a business leader requires to be fully effective in navigating the marketplace battlefield. He writes with passion, candor, and high energy. Another writer who obviously has bought this book, he talks about how this book has distilled first-hand knowledge of the author, who has managed some world-class brands and case studies of legendary brands, and how one can implement the same playbook in the business. This is a must-read for startup founders, entrepreneurs, students, and corporate leaders. Let me tell you a few things about how the book has actually been doing on the Amazon website. The book is trending at number 8 in sales, 15 in self-employment, and 16 in international business books, which is actually very marvelous. It is very, very good. One interesting thing about this book, and I think the genesis of this book, or the core of this book, is also tagged with the author, Mr. Patsarthi. Apart from having headed some extremely key multinationals, he's certified in hypnotherapy, Reiki, and Brahmakumari's meditation techniques. He's a staunch practitioner of cognitive behavioral therapy, neuro-linguistic programming, and acceptance and commitment therapy, which is, I think, a very unique combination for an author who marries his management techniques with these kind of systems. Mr. Patsarthi, let me start with asking you about how, apart from the fact that how it motivated you to write The Golden Ladder: Rise to be Unstoppable, I would also like to know how much has your professional journey influenced your understanding of the science you talk about in your book?
Right. Mr. Girirakash, firstly, thank you so much for reading all that. You're absolutely right. And I'm really blessed to have the book doing also so well. See, one of the things is that that my journey across all these companies has been almost a 95 to 100% driving force in terms of what I bring towards the book. And so the fundamental core comes from the fact that I observed during COVID that majority of the businesses kind of collapsed, and many individuals got displaced and became dysfunctional. But what I realized was that there are a few companies and some individuals who seem to be completely unstung by any of this happenings for hundreds and hundreds of years. It could be the world wars or the Spanish flu or the Great Depression, hundreds of years, and they are at number one position. And unfortunately, I have been with a lot of these companies, and sometimes they're selling ordinary products that anybody can make, but they would probably take a lifetime to sell. It could, like and all these companies, Johnson and Johnson, Colgate, Palmolive, 216 years selling toothpaste. So I was wondering, what is it that they really do? And I found out that this is not a coincidence, and they have a definite and a scripted science. And that science is what I have brought under the concept of the golden ladder. So just to give you a feel, golden ladder, like any other ladder, it's also got two legs. So one of the legs is what I call as the domain leg, which is how these people conduct their business in a completely different manner compared to the majority of the people who do business today. It could be entrepreneurs, it could be small companies, but these people have a different template, completely different. And the second leg is what the majority, all of us have, the most powerful instrument in the world, but we don't have an instruction manual for that, and that is the mind. And many people are aware, actually, the power of the mind, but they don't know to what extent it can have influence on everything. So these organizations, and of course the select individuals, have recognized this and have a specific science to even work on mind. Like, for example, Nike, they have a huge facility which talks about see it happen to make it happen. Colgate, they have a huge process. Johnson and Johnson have a systematic plan as to how you can incorporate courage and resilience into it. So I would say fortunate, for example, to have fallen prey to, apart from all these businesses, to have fallen prey to anxiety disorders and depression for about a couple of years. And I came out of it very, very successfully using a lot of these techniques that you spoke about, including ACT, which I think is very acceptance and commitment therapy. So I felt there are a lot of books who talk about business based on, I mean, great people are there. I mean, beyond what I can even imagine. And but they don't write about the mind. And there are many people who are the geniuses and the spiritual masters, the Ravi Shankar and Sadhguru, who write about the mind, but they may not write about brand creation. So I felt I probably had, let's say, qualification to bring both these together. And therefore, bringing these two together, and the real person who actually can sustain everything and be beyond adversity and vibrate at a frequency which is very high, is someone who I believe has climbed the steps of this golden ladder. I have said a bit too long, probably, but that is how the concept of the golden ladder is probably unique. And I just want to add one more self-glorification. This book has trended at #1 for a long time, and it's #1 on 6 categories across international and in domestic. And at times, in fact, recently, even last week, it was ahead of Kotler and Ogilvy and Elon Musk's books. But that's obviously a self-glorification thing that I just thought I'd tell you. And also, a lot of companies have taken this book to give it to all the employees. And in fact, I know one company from Dubai who has actually not only given it to every employee, but they're also having, my book talks about 21 mantras using which you can actually power yourself. So they have set up work groups wherein the group in the company discusses one mantra every week. So next week, in fact, I'm traveling to IIT Kanpur. They're launching the book. Beyond that, I'm going to IIM Nagpur. So I can go on like this. It's been a very, very humbling experience. And I'm really satisfied that the way the book has turned out. Yeah, thank you so much for this longish.
Not at all, not at all. We are extremely happy that an Indian author has been able to actually make such a huge dent internationally with his book. Before I come to the issue about how some of the Indian leaders have made it big in foreign multinationals, I would like to ask you about a few things about the book itself. How you among other things, you talk about the 3 common flaws that make most companies and individuals struggle in spite of hard work and intelligence. So the first common flaw, which is actually there on the Amazon website as well, is that you do talk about how most businesses do not know what they are selling. So let us take that up as the first one and the next two later.
Okay, I think that's the key. That's the business template that the legends, as we call, work on. Whereas today, in fact, even because I spend a lot of time with young entrepreneurs, and So majority of them are catering to one particular direction of business. What they do is,
Mm-hmm.
if you're selling televisions, if you're selling technology, if you're selling toothpaste, if you're selling cars, if you're selling anything, they're all the time focused on what their product is, what is their features, what is their benefits, and how they're better. They've got 37 benefits. How is it better than the other company? And the other company is telling how they are better than. So it's a huge war of how each one is better than the other in terms of what they do, in terms of their products and their benefits and everything. And the key to this is anything that any benefit, the greatest of revolution that you can bring
Mm-hmm.
can be outdone by someone else little later. It could be 6 months, it could be 3 months, sometimes even a day. Actually, you must have heard somebody saying that, even before I created the product, the technology was outdated. Whatever somebody does, it can be outdone by someone else. So the legends work on a formula which cannot be outdone by anybody ever. And that is what makes them, totally legendary. And it's like this. They never ever, whether you take Colgate, whether you take Unilever, whether you take Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, some of the Tata Group companies, they never ever, if you take a product and you watch them, they never talk about their product. They never talk about their features. Coke, 186, 150, 60 years or on, they never talk about they have, this kind of ingredient, or this kind of it's better than somebody else. All they talk is one particular way they conduct business. They talk about how they integrate into the emotion of the consumer. They understand what is it that drives the consumer's emotion, and then they stitch that together, and they are together. If you see Gillette, I mean, I have quoted these in the book, some of the ads, if you see, they never ever talk. And so the main difference is how they integrate emotion into their whole business, and they only talk about emotion. Because irrespective of generations, whether like they say the baby boomers or the millennials or the Gen Z, many things have changed. Everything has changed, but one thing is common between everybody else in all generations. That's the emotion. The emotion of love, the fear, and anger and hate, and whatever you feel are constant throughout generations. The way it's expressed is different, and therefore, if you can tie on to that, you will always be above the clouds of turbulence of all this. And so that is the biggest difference that they bring. And knowing this is one thing, but how do you incorporate it into business is another thing. And so, which is what I teach in all my consulting. And actually, one of the longest chapters in the book is dedicated to this. How do you identify the right emotion? How do you integrate your product into that emotion? And then thereby set yourself on a legendary path. Then people do not question you for price, do not question you for anything, and the customer will start defending you for your product. So that's the difference: product and features versus emotion. So I can go on like this, as you know. But so I think yeah. So that's the feel. Yeah, I hope I have been able to give some idea about what it is.
So I'm going to take up the third flaw as a second one, because it is related to something that happened last week, and I want to bring that ahead. The third flaw that you talked about is that how many believe that they have been doing very well for many years, nothing can touch them. COVID actually has proved them wrong, but to insulate from these adversaries, there is a special blueprint followed by legends. And you talked about how J&J continues to be the number one pharma company worldwide, even after 136 years and several pandemics. In relation to that, I would like to talk to you about my recent visit to Gurgaon, where I, went to a museum called Museo Camera, where almost the entire journey of camera and how exactly what exactly happened to those brands and things like that. You have Nikon or an Agfa and an Eastman and all that, and we don't see them any longer because of the fact that our own mobile phones now have very powerful cameras. In a situation like this, and one, if you could look at Xerox, for example, it had become a common noun for copying documents, and several of them, for that matter. How do you put that in perspective? A Remington typewriter is no longer read because You can type on your mobile phones, you have laptops and stuff like that. Looking at the kind of journey that you had so far, what are the things that they need to reinvent themselves and still remain in business? Quite a few of them actually gone out of business
Absolutely.
because technology has caught up with them, and in a manner where it has caught up with them, and uh, in a manner where they were very unaware of it.
Yes, absolutely. Kodak is another example, right? And I think it was there riding at about 80% market share and went away. So absolutely, you're right. There are two things. Number one is it all starts from the fact that what is the core, in one of the chapters I've tried to identify this. What is the core why, which even people like Simon Sinek talk about, is why you're doing this business for whatever it is. And
Mhm.
when you do that, you will realize that you have a horizon of audience to which you're catering a particular why. Now, at that point of time, some of the businesses that we do, like for example, whatever the typewriters or like the shaving machines or whatever it is, these are the avenues for which to cater to the why. And what I was talking to you about, like for example, rather than the product and the feature, and that is the how of doing the business. So if you cut across, like you start with the why of why you're doing a business, and then you get like say the meat of what offering those things, and the way you how you do it. So when everything is okay, like like you're on the technology and everything is okay, you actually are going ahead with the why. And then the people who fall off are the people who do not know the how. That means, which I was telling you, the emotional part, how you want to do that. Now,
Mhm.
when you with times, like we talked about typewriters, we talk when that whole technology and the whole and the whole process is changed, then you come back to the why. Like if somebody were to offer, let's take your typewriter as an example. I'm just going to talk and from the top of my mind, let me. So if there was a company which is offering an X service to the customer, there was a particular need that they were satisfying of that customer in a particular manner, and the
Mhm.
manner was typewriter. Somebody did it correctly through the how of emotion. Somebody didn't do it correctly by just saying my. So when typewriter starts going down as a technology, what is the need that customer is now replacing that need with? Now, therefore, if you can understand the core reason why he's buying into you, then you will be able to float with with the changes in times of their product. Now, I don't know if I'm coming across very clear, but it's like this. If I'm going to offer the ability to satisfy world's health, right? As my why, which is one of Johnson and Johnson's. Now, if you look at, and if that is my why, and if that's why I've called it in the chapter of called vision. If this is my vision, and then irrespective of whatever I offer, as long as my vision is constant towards the purpose that I'm offering, then products don't matter. Whether it could be the typewriter, it could be
Okay.
like that's what Apple does, right? It could be the typewriter, it could be tomorrow morning in the camera world. If my ability is to give a visual experience to the customer, it could have been through the Nikon camera, it could be through something else. But Nikon decided camera is the only way I'm going to offer pictures, then Nikon will get wiped out. But if my purpose and why is to provide visual experiences beyond imagination to
Mhm.
the customer, then I can bring in other products to suit that purpose. And the how, of course, is through emotion. And so this
Mhm.
is the key, and that these guys have understood very, very clearly. Nothing can upset them, and that's why they're there. So in summary, it's
Mhm.
like that. You understand what is the purpose to which you're offering the customer whom you're integrated with, and you can then choose to decide the products are just an avenue or a conduit to be able to
Mhm.
satisfy this overall purpose, but never go the
Mhm.
route, go the emotional route. So you have the why, you
Mhm.
have the meat, and then you have the how. I hope I have clarified a
Yeah,
little.
yeah, it's you put it out very well. One thing that I've noticed is that the ability to reinvent themselves is much more among companies today, multinationals today, than it was before. It could be because of a whole lot of things that are happening
Yes.
since the year 2000 in this century. But if you look at any of the companies which are of recent origin, have done very well for themselves. Their ability to reinvent has been very fast and more than else very accurate as well.
Yes, absolutely. And the need has been very high. Once upon a time, probably the need to reinvent wasn't so high.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The second flaw that you talk about is that how most businesses and individuals believe that they can become great icons with hard work, intelligence, and technology alone, and even with money, which, according to you, is actually very wrong. So, how do you explain that? But aren't these the basics of anything in life?
Yes. So, okay, it's like this. Let me paraphrase that better, probably in terms hard work, intelligence, integrity, and honesty, etc., are the foundations. Okay,
Mm,
without this, there is no game. Like
mm,
Jack Welch says, there is no ticket to the game without. So I believe that strongly. Hard work, intelligence, etc., are the foundation. But this
mm,
alone is not enough. I'm not saying these are not required. I'm
mhm.
saying, you can't just sit there and eat like Jim Carrey says,
Yeah,
eat
yeah,
like.
I do
Yeah,
understand.
but
Yeah,
these are the
yeah.
basics. Now, beyond
Mhm,
this, there are a few who go very, very high, and there are many people
mm,
who get stuck at this. And those
mhm,
people are the key, the differentiator who understand the right side of the golden ladder, which is the
mhm,
ability to use the mind.
mhm,
Yeah, and because using the mind, mind is like, for example, therefore, I've devoted half the book towards what these people have done, in terms of the mind, in terms of how everybody says, come on, don't worry, develop, don't be afraid. But how do you not be afraid when there is a fearful situation? How do you not worry? What is worry? How do you not worry? And there are, people say that like come on, have faith and have and believe that everything. Somebody is earning 1 lakh per month or per year, say. How does he believe that he can actually earn 10 lakhs per month or 1 crore a month? How does he believe? So what I have, these people understand that there is a particular step by step methodology to create
mhm,
beliefs, to create
mhm,
resilience, to create courage. Courage is just, everybody knows that we need to have courage, but how do I develop courage? What are the factors that go in? So that is what I have tried to, because I also read a lot of books and I have not found many books where they tell you systematic processes of how you can create visualization. For example, Jim Carrey was a famous actor, has always gone on to on a record saying that how he actually visualized a $10 million check when he, but nobody says what are the steps of visualization, therefore to be able to manifest. And once you know these things, the steps to manifest, the process of visualization. I mean, I myself have said how I got one of the fancy cars through exactly a process of visualization. And how do I create, how do I delete self-defeating beliefs, and how do I create constructive ones? If you have these, then with this foundation of hard work and everything, you can go very, very high. But if you don't, you can actually fall. Because I myself have fallen when I realized that I was flying high. The first two chapters talk about that. I really was doing very well and everywhere else, and I felt prey to anxiety, depression, and my whole this thing came flying down. But then, and that's when prompted me to recognize that what are the things that go into bringing you back, and how you don't have to fall into this negative pits. You can be exceptionally intelligent, you can have all the hard work, but if your mind is not in the right place, you're not going to. And that is what is the key differentiator between
mhm,
someone who's great, like the good to great, but this is great to
mhm,
exemplary, somebody who knows his mind very, very uh, that's why I always feel that the mind can take you to the heights of success or bring you
mhm.
down to the depths of depression or despair.
Yes, yes, which
Within,
is
I
true,
mean,
which
all
is
of us,
true.
I'm sure you know this, but a lot of young people out there, especially after COVID, I do counseling, mental health counseling also,
Uh-huh.
and
Mhm,
as I do this, I realize there are many, many people who who don't know why they are not peaking at their best. They're not there. I mean, they can be far ahead of what they are. And
mhm,
that journey of post-COVID, how you can actually work on your mind, which is critical. And therefore, I've given a longish answer to the second flaw, but that is key. And
Okay.
yeah, so
let's telescope it from, say, a multinational corporation to individuals. Today, um, one never thought about this, but then you have in almost every major multinational company, foreign multinational companies, you find Indians at the top. It could be Satya Nadella or
yeah,
even Ajay Banga, who is the World Bank president. I mean, nobody ever thought that an Indian will end up as a World Bank president. What is it that through your learnings and whatever that you have written in this book has made them stand out like this? Because it's not that easy to head such huge, foreign multinationals.
yes, absolutely right. In fact, even the Prime Minister of UK is an Indian right now, right? And Prime Minister of the United
I
States.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's like this. So in fact, I think Mr. Bhaskar Bhatt, who was the ex-MD of Titan and who was
the
also,
Vistara chairman.
yeah, he was the chairman of Vistara and is on the board of Tata. He summarized this very well about my book. See, my book is about how you can probably scale businesses to new heights using the science of some of these great legends. But if you're not in business, if you're not an entrepreneur, if you're not, but if you just want to redo your life, irrespective of wherever you are in terms of your current state of health, wealth, relationships, if you want to do that, the entire second part of the book is this. So all the people that you would see today, whether Ajay Banga is a couple of batches, I mean, from the same institute down the line from where I have been, I'm really proud to know that these people have done that. They all systematically fall into how they program the mind. There is a section called reprogramming the subconscious of your mind, which I've taken a lot of study to do this. And they have got how to face an adversity, how to come out of every small, how to think completely differently. There's a chapter on how you can, what I call as design thinking, how everybody thinks in a particular manner, but how these people thinks differently, and how
Mhm,
I mean, they have utilized in whenever times have come in terms of how to bring out the courage in them, how to not be faced by what is happening around them. And in fact,
mhm,
Mukesh Ambani talks in one of his interviews, and I've quoted him in that, and I really believe that the single most factor that can differentiate an ordinary or an extraordinary to go to a level beyond anything else is only one factor, and that is courage.
mhm,
And
mhm,
that, I think all of these people have it in abundance. And the important thing is to know how do you develop this courage, and which is what I have tried to take and put them into 5 steps and 6 steps, and understanding all these people. Some of the people that you know about, I've had personal interactions with, and I've
okay.
had, yeah. So that's the key of how these people will be, and there'll be more. It just so happens that India is a place which I think there is, to be honest, inherently there is also a spiritual lineage which makes them come out of to achieve these levels of success. And India is actually
Mhm,
has a lot of bearing on that. And
mhm,
it's I don't see this as a surprise that Indians, okay, about 20, 30 years ago when I was heading companies and all that, Indians were never there. But today I think the world has really understood this, and it's no surprise. When you meet any of them, you will know. And many of them who have not actually been there and heading in international companies, when I meet, including people like I just mentioned, Bhaskar or anybody else, they are a level, they understand couple of things which are very, very different. Number one is how to be people centric. How do you understand
mhm,
what makes people, go and create ownership for themselves? When you have
mhm,
people who create ownership in your organizations and they work for themselves and not for you. And when they work for themselves, there is no limit. And then you are just actually watching the game. And so,
mhm,
yeah, so these are some of the things that I strongly believe have helped them. And it can
mhm,
help any individual at any age if you just follow a set principles uh, of how you can actually unleash the true power of your mind. That's
mhm, mhm.
I hope
Okay.
that's kind of answered your question, but
Yeah, it does. My next question is all about COVID, and I can't help asking you that question, though I am sure it has been repeatedly spoken about as far as businesses are concerned. We are, I must say, more than 18 months now living behind COVID as of now. Uh, Looking back, do you really think it has had the kind of impact on businesses as one assumed it would have? And has it actually reshaped the business landscape, and whether it has actually has had any kind of learnings for entrepreneurs?
yeah, see the visual. I mean, obvious things are there for people to see, but what it has done actually, COVID, it has it has made actually people
Mm,
relook at life and the world in a slightly different way. A lot of
mhm,
things people do not take for granted. People, I
mhm,
mean, like I speak to a lot of hotel people, they say nobody books now for 1 year and 8 months ahead. They're all booking about 3 months ahead, 1 month ahead, and things like that. I mean, they
okay.
so that's basically a lot of mental shift has happened, and there is definitely um, there are a lot of people who have fear has entered into their minds, and fear and uncertainty uh, and that anything could happen anytime is something that is kind of so it has propelled a few individuals to look at things completely differently and in a positive manner. But there are a lot of people out
Mhm,
there who are also going through a negative bout. I'm talking of individuals
mhm,
who are not able to come up to many higher levels because they're struggling with fear and the after effects of COVID and mental health and things like that. Uh,
mhm.
and so this will carry on, I guess, till people forget for some time. Like they say, memory is short for most of these things.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
even I don't now remember that it was COVID was
Hmm.
this. Yeah. So once that happens, the lessons to learn are how do you set yourself when adversity happens. So one of the key elements that I use in the book is you may or may not have control on what happens to you, but you have 100% control on what you do with what happens to you. And if we can actually integrate that and make people prepared in terms
Okay.
of how to take forward whenever any adversity happens or it's that'll happen. So there is the effect of COVID has definitely been somewhat long lasting at this point of time. I mean,
Mhm, mhm. Okay, okay. My last question would obviously be on startups. And as someone who has helped elevate a brand from the drawing board to over $100 million in global revenues, could you sort of, and much beyond that actually, could you share some practical advice for startup founders, entrepreneurs who are actually going through this interview? The fact is that I find that that several startups are actually going through a midlife crisis now,
right.
and how does one navigate from there?
Yeah, I think, see, once again, there are two aspects to this whole startup business. My own daughter has left an investment banking job in London, and she's now come to do a startup in Mysore. So
Hmm.
once again, if you want to do a startup, I keep asking. One of the things I keep asking is ask yourself why are you doing what you're doing. Is if because if it is going to be driven by passion towards a particular objective, that's one way of handling a startup. But if you're driven by I want to make an X amount of money, and therefore there's another way of handling this whole thing. People do get confused about this, and the other thing is in terms of patience. The most important thing that you need in a startup is to have the persistence and patience to be able to keep it for as long as it takes. Not that I'm looking for a lot of people today. I mean, when you see, I mean, everybody wants, a lot of people want to be the next unicorn in the next 24 hours. I mean, that's not going to happen. All right. So this get rich quick schemes, etc. So summary, you need to have the courage to be, once again, I keep coming back to the word, to be able to get into it knowing that you won't get the results very fast. Could be 1 year, it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years, but keep on to the passion. It'll help. And secondly, a lot of people believe if I get funding, my startup is going to take off. And that's the biggest lie. You know, money is not going to make a difference in terms of how you're going to shape up your startup. And these are the people who need to understand that what is the value proposition that I'm giving to the customer, and how is it an emotional value proposition? Not just like, I'll give you an example. Somebody came to me and said, I have this product which has got 100 more features than Instagram. So I said, that doesn't mean anything, because Instagram is not based on features. Instagram is based on a particular emotional quotient that they're trying to stitch in with the audience. So from the beginning, what is the problem that you want to solve? Are you solving a problem that's already there?
Yeah, that's true.
Or are you creating a new avenue for it? That's the fundamental thing you need to ask. Secondly, how am I going to provide an emotional solution to that? Not just a product today which can be outlived by somebody tomorrow, but what is the emotional solution I'm going to? And then third is, I need to recognize that I need to have people around me who believe in what I do, right? Not that I'm getting somebody who's just working for himself. So if you get people who believe in what I do as a value proposition to the customer, then you're going in for the long race. And do not believe that once I get funding, I'll be the greatest guy. No, that will be the misuse of funds. And therefore, these are some of the things that, and if you follow all these, even creating a name, how do you create a name of an organization, of a startup? There is a science behind that. And not just, so if you follow all these steps in the first 7 or 8 chapters, which are almost dedicated to startups, I think you have a great race going.
Coming back to the book itself, what are the 3 big learnings from the book?
Learnings to the customer?
Learnings in the sense that what are the 3 takeaways from that book?
From the book. Number one, the biggest takeaway is what I've spoken. Biggest takeaway is that you have to do business in a completely different way, not by product and benefit. You have to do it based on an emotional manner. That's number one. Number two is that beyond a particular point, for you to go into the league of the legends, you need to understand how you can power your mind to be able to get something extraordinary. That's number two. And number three is, the key to everything is how you bring all the people together in this race towards making anything happen. So if you were to take 3 takeaways, one is different business model. Number 2 is the power of the mind. And number 3, the key stakeholders that make all the difference. It could be starting with your family, with yourself, and with everybody else. And that could be the 3 takeaways.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Patsati. Thank you for taking time off to be part of this discussion and be the first person whom we have interviewed for Back of the Book series. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Girirakash. I really appreciate you taking the time to have me on this first show, and I'm really privileged. I'm the first guy, so and I'm sure.
Sure. Thank you very much.
So much, and you have a great day.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.